The candles on my birthday cake were still burning when the knock came at the door. Everyone had been singing moments earlier, their voices blending with fake smiles and sharp glances. My husband, Damien, sat across the table, his jaw tight, his eyes colder than the frosting on that untouched cake. When I opened the door, a man in a crisp suit placed a folder in my hands. The words hit me like a knife: divorce petition. On my birthday. In front of my entire in-law family. Gasps filled the room. My mother-in-law, Vivian, didn't even bother to hide her smirk. My father-in-law, Charles, folded his arms proudly, as if this humiliation was a carefully staged performance. Even Damien's sister, Madeline, whispered loud enough for me to hear, "Finally, she'll be out of our lives." My hands shook, but I didn't let them see me break. The room blurred with laughter, with whispers of failure, shame, and unworthy wife. I stared at the papers, at the cruel signatures already scribbled across the page. This was supposed to be the day I felt celebrated, loved. Instead, they tried to shatter me. But what they didn't know was that this betrayal would not destroy me. It would free me. And as I looked up, meeting Damien's cold eyes, I realized something. Sometimes the worst gift you can receive is the one that finally sets you free. So tell me, if you were handed divorce papers as a birthday present, in front of everyone you knew, would you fight back in rage, or walk away in silence, untouchable? I wasn't born into wealth. My name is Elena Cross, and before marriage, I was Elena Hayes, a woman from a modest but honest family. My parents taught me that love meant loyalty, that marriage meant partnership. When Damien courted me, he played the perfect man. He spoke about dreams, children, and forever. I believed him. I believed too much. The day I walked into the Cross mansion as his wife, I thought I was stepping into a fairy tale. Instead, I had walked into a stage where every glance, every gesture, every word was part of a test I could never pass. Vivian, my mother-in-law, never missed a chance to remind me that I wasn't their kind of people. "You don't belong here, Elena," she'd say with her perfect lipstick smile. "You're just temporary." Charles, my father-in-law, ran the family's law firm like a kingdom. He carried the Cross name like a crown. To him, I was just a weak link, a girl who couldn't elevate their empire. He'd often mutter, "Damien could have married into power, but he settled for pity." And then there was Madeline, Damien's younger sister. She lived for drama, for gossip, for tearing me apart in whispers that always found their way back to me. "She's plain," she'd sneer. "Damien deserves more." But what hurt most wasn't their cruelty. It was Damien's silence. He never defended me. Not once. In fact, he grew colder with time. The man I had once loved became a stranger with expensive suits and hollow eyes. I tried to fight for our marriage. I baked his favorite meals, planned small surprises, even stood by him at every family event where I was treated like a servant instead of a wife. But nothing was ever enough. The Cross family didn't want a daughter-in-law. They wanted a puppet. And yet, I stayed. Because deep inside, I believed love could heal even the deepest wounds. But love doesn't survive where respect is dead. The weeks before my birthday were a blur of tension. Damien barely came home. Vivian gave me cold orders about the party she insisted on throwing. "It will be perfect, Elena. Don't embarrass us." What I didn't know was that this party wasn't for me. It was for them. A perfect stage to break me publicly. That's why when the lawyer appeared at the door, when the papers cut through the air like a dagger, it all clicked. This wasn't sudden. It was planned. Calculated. Designed to humiliate me so deeply that I'd never rise again. But here's the irony. Betrayal has a strange way of igniting strength. Standing in that glittering dining hall, with candles flickering and whispers slicing through the air, I felt something shift inside me. For the first time, I wasn't afraid of losing Damien. I was afraid of losing myself. And that's when I decided, if this was the game they wanted to play, I wouldn't just survive it. I'd rewrite the rules. The birthday night replayed in my head for days. Every whispered laugh, every smug glance from Vivian, every arrogant smirk from Damien burned like fire inside me. But instead of collapsing, I did something unexpected. I went silent. I didn't argue. I didn't beg. I didn't ask why. And that silence unnerved them. At breakfast the next morning, Vivian leaned across the table, her diamond bracelet catching the light. "So, Elena," she purred, "have you signed them yet? The papers?" I sipped my coffee slowly, forcing my hands not to tremble. "Not yet." Damien's jaw tightened. "The sooner you accept reality, the easier this will be." I met his cold gaze and answered softly, "Reality has a strange way of shifting, Damien. Don't be so sure this ends the way you think." For the first time, he blinked. Just for a second. Days turned into weeks. Every move I made was watched, every word I spoke twisted against me. Yet beneath their cruelty, I started noticing cracks. One night, as I passed Charles's office, I overheard voices. Damien's sharp tone echoed through the heavy door. "You promised me the firm, Dad. This divorce was your condition. You said if I got rid of her, the partnership would be mine." My breath caught. So it wasn't just about me. It was about power. Control. Damien's family hadn't just convinced him to leave me, they had bought his loyalty with ambition. But fate wasn't finished yet. A week later, while cleaning the study, a place I was rarely allowed to touch, I found a folder carelessly tucked under stacks of papers. Inside were documents about the firm's finances. At first, they made no sense. But one detail screamed at me: large, unexplained transfers into Damien's account from clients who never appeared in official ledgers. It was fraud. Corruption. A family empire built not just on arrogance, but on crimes. The next evening, Damien cornered me. "You've dragged this out long enough," he snapped, slamming the divorce papers onto the marble counter. "Sign it, Elena. Be done with this farce." I looked at him, calm, steady. "What happens if I don't?" His smile was ice. "Then we'll ruin you. My family has power you can't imagine. You'll leave here with nothing but shame." My heart raced, but I didn't flinch. "Funny," I whispered, "power built on secrets never lasts." For the first time, I saw fear flicker in his eyes. Barely visible, but it was there. Vivian grew crueler as the days passed. She threw insults like knives, accusing me of clinging to a marriage that was already dead. Madeline fueled the fire with gossip, whispering to neighbors and friends that I was desperate, unstable, even unfaithful. But what they didn't realize was that their cruelty no longer broke me. It armed me. With every insult, I became more certain. With every whisper, more unshakable. Because I had something stronger than their lies. I had the truth. And I was saving it for the perfect moment. The night before our first court appearance, I stood alone in the mansion's grand hallway, staring at the portraits of the Cross family lined up like royalty. Their cold eyes seemed to mock me, as if daring me to challenge their throne. I whispered to myself, "Tomorrow, the stage will be mine." I folded the evidence carefully, placed it inside my bag, and closed my eyes. The same house that once made me feel small would now witness my rise. They thought divorce papers on my birthday would destroy me. But instead, they had handed me the very weapon I needed, the courage to fight back. And I was ready to strike. The courtroom was colder than I expected. Not in temperature, but in silence, a silence heavy with judgment, pride, and fear. Damien sat at the opposite table, dressed in his tailored suit, jaw sharp with arrogance. Vivian sat beside him like a queen, her pearls gleaming under the light, while Charles and Madeline whispered behind them, their confidence unshakable. To them, this was a performance, another stage to break me publicly. The judge entered, and the gavel struck. My heart thudded, but I kept my face calm. This wasn't the Elena they thought they knew. This was someone new, someone they had created with their cruelty. Damien's lawyer rose first. His voice was smooth, rehearsed. Your Honor, my client, Mr. Cross, seeks divorce on grounds of incompatibility. The marriage has failed, and Mrs. Cross has refused to cooperate. We ask the court to finalize the dissolution swiftly. The words stung, but I stayed silent. My lawyer gave me a nod. The signal. It was time. I stood, my hands steady as I held up a folder. Your Honor, before any decisions are made, I'd like to present evidence. Evidence that reveals the true motive behind this divorce. Gasps rippled through the courtroom. Damien's smirk faltered. The judge gestured. Proceed, Mrs. Cross. I opened the folder, pulling out the documents I had hidden away. These are financial records from the Cross family firm. Records of payments made to Damien Cross. Payments that don't exist in official ledgers. These are not bonuses, Your Honor, they're bribes, hidden through fraudulent accounts. The courtroom erupted in whispers. Damien's face turned pale. I continued, my voice stronger now. And here's the most important part. Weeks before this divorce, Damien agreed to it under one condition, that his father, Charles Cross, would make him a full partner in the firm. This divorce isn't about incompatibility. It's about greed. About power. Vivian shot up from her seat, her voice shrill. She's lying. She's desperate, trying to drag us down with her. But the judge slammed the gavel. Order in the court. I looked directly at Damien. For the first time, he couldn't meet my eyes. My lawyer stepped forward, adding weight to my revelation. Your Honor, these documents have been cross-verified. We request a full investigation into the Cross firm's finances. Until then, this divorce cannot be seen as a simple matter of incompatibility. It is entwined with corruption, coercion, and fraud. The judge studied the papers, his expression unreadable. Then he looked at Damien. Mr. Cross, do you deny these transfers? Damien stammered, his polished words slipping away. It's a misunderstanding. She's twisting things. But Charles cut in, his voice thunderous. Enough, Damien. His mask finally cracked. You couldn't even handle this properly. The courtroom gasped as father and son turned on each other. Vivian tried to pull him back, hissing, Charles, stop. But the damage was done. I took a slow breath, letting their empire collapse under its own weight. This is what they tried to hide, Your Honor. They used my marriage as a bargaining chip, my humiliation as a tool for power. But truth has a way of surfacing. The judge's voice was sharp now. This court will not be a playground for greed. An inquiry will begin immediately. Until then, all proceedings related to this divorce are suspended. The gavel struck again. The courtroom buzzed with chaos. Reporters whispered, eyes flashing with hunger for scandal. Damien sat frozen, Vivian's hands shaking as she tried to control the storm. Charles glared at me with venom, but his kingdom had already started to crumble. I rose slowly, gathering my papers, and looked at them one last time. You gave me divorce papers on my birthday, thinking it was my end. But today, I gave you the truth, and it's your undoing. For the first time, they had no words. No insults. No power. And as I walked out of that courtroom, my steps echoed with the sound of freedom. News travels fast when it smells like scandal. By the next morning, the Cross name wasn't spoken with pride but with whispers of fraud and betrayal. Newspapers printed headlines. Prestigious Cross law firm under investigation for financial misconduct. Reporters camped outside the mansion, their cameras flashing as Vivian tried to keep up appearances. But her perfect pearls and polished smile couldn't cover the cracks forming inside their empire. I watched from the sidewalk as she shoved past photographers, hissing under her breath. They'll ruin us, Charles. All because of her. But Charles had no patience left. His voice was gravel, filled with rage. No, Vivian. This happened because you thought we were untouchable. You staged her humiliation, and now it's our own humiliation that's public. The cracks in their family widened until they became canyons. Damien, once so arrogant, appeared at my door one evening. He looked nothing like the man who had smirked at me across the courtroom. His eyes were sunken, his voice desperate. "Elena, please, we can fix this. The investigation, it's destroying everything. If you stand by me, if you say you exaggerated." I cut him off with a laugh that held no humor. "Stand by you? You couldn't even stand by me when your family tore me apart day after day. You chose greed over love, Damien. And now you want me to save you from drowning?" His lips trembled. "I made mistakes." "No," I whispered, my voice steady. "You made choices. And this is where they led you." He left without another word. That was the last time I saw him. Vivian tried to play victim in front of society, but the world wasn't buying it anymore. Once her weapon was gossip, but now, every word she spoke turned into fire against her own name. Women she once mocked began whispering behind her back. The queen of arrogance had been dethroned. Charles fought hard to cover the firm's tracks, but investigators uncovered more than even I imagined. Hidden accounts, offshore transfers, falsified cases. The empire he built on pride was nothing but sand, and the tide had come. Madeline tried to distance herself, telling anyone who would listen, I had nothing to do with it. I always thought Elena was sweet. But the world remembered her whispers, her laughter when I was humiliated. Society has a long memory when karma comes collecting. As for me, I didn't just walk away. I rose. I moved back into a small apartment of my own. It wasn't grand, it wasn't gold-plated, but it was mine. For the first time in years, I cooked meals without insults filling the air. I read books without fear of judgment. I breathed without the weight of their control pressing against my chest. Every morning, I looked in the mirror and repeated the words that carried me through. They tried to crush me, but I walked away untouchable. I found work at a community legal center, helping women who, like me, had been silenced, manipulated, broken down by powerful families or cruel partners. My pain became my weapon, my past became my guide. And slowly, laughter returned to my life. Not the kind of laughter that mocked or wounded, but real laughter, the kind that heals. One evening, months later, I passed by the Cross Mansion. It stood tall, but hollow, its gates unguarded, its lights dim. A house of arrogance reduced to an empty shell. I didn't feel anger anymore. I felt something better, peace. Because I had learned something priceless, sometimes, the greatest revenge isn't destruction. It's living free, happy, and untouched by the ones who tried to break you. And that's exactly what I chose to do. When I look back now, I sometimes wonder how I survived those years inside the Cross Mansion. The insults, the cold silences, the constant reminders that I wasn't enough. But then I remind myself, I didn't just survive. I walked away free. That birthday night, the night they tried to crush me with divorce papers, felt like the end of my world. In reality, it was the beginning of my freedom. What they planned as humiliation became the spark that gave me strength. Vivian's cruelty taught me that respect is worth more than diamonds. Charles's arrogance showed me that power built on lies eventually collapses. Madeline's whispers reminded me that the truth is louder than gossip. And Damien taught me the hardest lesson of all: love without loyalty is nothing but a hollow shell. I don't carry hatred anymore. Hatred keeps you chained to the past. What I carry is wisdom, and a quiet pride that I never let them turn me into what they wanted: broken, bitter, and voiceless. Today, when I see women walk into the legal center with tears in their eyes and fear in their hearts, I see pieces of my old self. And I tell them the same thing I wish someone had told me back then. You are stronger than the hands trying to pull you down. And one day, you'll thank yourself for walking away. Because here's the truth, walking away is not weakness. It's the purest form of strength. So, to anyone watching this who has ever been humiliated, betrayed, or made to feel small, remember my story. Remember that the things meant to break you can be the very things that set you free. And if this story touched you, share it with someone who needs strength today. You never know whose chains you might help unlock.